Welcome to As I Live and Grieve, a podcast that tells the truth about how hard this is. We're glad you joined us today. We know how hard it is to lose someone you love and how well-intentioned friends and family try so hard to comfort us. We created this podcast to provide you with comfort, knowledge, and support. We are grief advocates, not professionals, not licensed therapists. We are you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back again to another episode of As I Live and Grieve. I hope you've all been taking care of yourselves. You know, I tell you that every time I sign off, so don't disappoint me, okay? Thanks for finding time to come back and listen again. Another great guest. Yes, I say it every time, and yes, it's true, every time. With me today is Gina Economopoulos. Did I do it right again, Gina?
You did it correct.
Great. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Oh, thanks for having me, Kathy. I appreciate you for being here and for all your listeners to share their time with us. And it's a joy. It's a joy to be here. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to have you start us off, if you would, Gina. Would you kind of introduce yourself to our listeners? Let them know a little bit of your story and why you're here.
Oh, wow. Yes. As you all know, I'm Gina Economopoulos. I was born and raised on Long Island, New York. One of 8 kids, 7th child. I went to college. I was a bartender in my life. And then I was a Catholic nun for 12 years in my life. And then I went back to bartending. So my life has a lot of twists and turns, a lot of paths. But throughout my paths, grief always came into play. I lost my mom at a young age, at the age of 23. That was my first, I would say, real grief experience.
Right.
Leaving the nunnery, the sisterhood, that was another grief experience.
Absolutely.
And then I also, later on, after leaving the sisters, I fell in love with an alcoholic, and we were engaged to be married. But then yet he died. So that's another grief experience. But I'm here to tell you that there is hope and that there is strength in all.
Absolutely. And listeners, you can't see the smile on her face, but she has the brightest smile that I've seen in a while. And so, yes, it's proof positive. So let's talk a little bit on your journey. Now, you mentioned, this is one to wrap your head around, bartender, nun, bartender.
Yeah.
What happened? What happened that would... I'm sure when you entered the convent and entered the sisterhood that you were committed to that life. What happened?
Well, so true. So true. Well, I'll back up a little bit because first I had to know who God was. You know, I need to know who Jesus was before even a vocation of being a sister. As I said, I was raised in a Catholic family, raised Catholic, went to school in college, went away from my Catholic church, not away from God, but the Catholic church didn't need God, whatever. Yeah, that's why I was bartending. I lived like a Sodom and Gomorrah, in that kind of environment. But that environment, I lived in college, so it was something I was used to and I wanted, that I liked, because I was looking for that love, looking for it to be accepted, and I was looking in all the wrong places.
Yeah.
So during that time, my mom was diagnosed with cancer back in 1992. I happened to be at home with my dad while bartending, and I took care of my mom with my dad. Okay. And that's the first time that cancer came into our lives. What is cancer? And she was terminally ill right off the get-go. The doctor gave her 4 to 6 months to live after a simple operation on her back. Yeah. She was diagnosed with bone cancer. So I was clueless. Yeah. All I know is I loved my mom. And I wanted her to live. I was 23 years old, and but yet mom died. So when she died, I literally died. I was searching for the meaning of life. I came back to my Catholic roots now. I came back to the aha moment. I had a spiritual experience where I was like, oh my God, my mom's in heaven. Jesus is in heaven. This is what I should have known and received as a Catholic Christian on Easter Sunday. When the resurrection, heaven is earth, like that. But it had to do with my mom's death, through a lot of tears, a lot of crying. And so now here I'm on the other spectrum, bartending is bad. Didn't want to go back to bartending. I'm living this life of Jesus, following Jesus.
Right.
I meet this a young community back then. Now I'm in my 25, 26, but I see these young men and women loving Jesus, loving God, and having fun. But they were, an austere, wearing a habit, an austere community. So I'm like, yeah, that's what I want. Right. So I did. And like you said, it was a commitment. I was there for 12 years. I did make my final vows, like in any marriage. Of my marriage was marrying God, the church, the community, and the people that we serve. We were Franciscans. So this was it, ring and all and everything. And I thought, this is my life. But yet I experienced a lot of suffering, pain from the hands of the community. I was rejected. I was sent away. It was just ugly, ugly stuff that was going on in the community. But at the same time, I covered my whole life with a smile. Now, I'm not in pain. Everything is fine. Everything is fine. Oh, no, I love myself. I love this. No, I'm not hurting. That doesn't hurt me. And I want you to feel good. I want this. I want peace. Now, I'll take it. That was my whole life. That identity that I formed with myself, a false identity. And so at the end of 12 years of religious life, even though, part of me, I'm married to God, I can't leave him now. I made, like you said, I like that. I made that commitment, those vows, final vows. But yet, in the long run, the sisters kicked me out. In the long run, the sister says, you don't belong here anymore. In the long run, in hindsight, I was emotionally abused in hindsight.
Okay.
And I'm okay with that today. But yet, once again, had to go through a lot of pain and trauma and grief because of leaving, like a divorce. It's like a divorce. And I tell you, Kathy, the last 2 years of my religious life, when the community approached me and says that, we need a break from you, you need to go get help in this, I did everything I can, like any marriage would. When husband and wife's a hard rock, you hear they go to counseling, go this. I went for the counseling. I was sent away. I was like, but they didn't.
Yeah.
And so when I came back to the community after being kind of renewed, refreshed, like, yeah, there's nothing really wrong with me. What I've learned is that I need to love myself more. There were certain things, it was all about me, but yet I really had another spiritual experience, but the sisters didn't receive it. Like the sisters, and so they asked me, one day they literally says, you don't belong here anymore. And I was like, what? After 12 years, through my blood, sweat, and I moved on. I had to move on. Now I'm in my 40s, and I'm like, okay, what is life all about for Gina? What am I supposed to do? So, and I also have to say, Kathy, by now, as we all, when we turn like 13, 17, 18, what is your dream? My dream back then was to get married and have 8 kids.
Well, yeah, that's what it was. That's what it was. Yeah.
Because my family was so loving. Like my parents, I saw it, my parents, my father worked, my mother took care of the kids. She worked just as hard as my dad did, worked hard together and raised us. And so I was like, yeah, that's what I want. But that wasn't God's plan for me. And I didn't realize that. And I had to go through a lot of pain, suffering, rejection, uncertainty.
If you consider here and now, how do you feel you are now? Are you in a much better place?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And what did you do? What did you do to get there?
I could jump to the moon and back and forth. Okay. But back to the moon and back. Yes. What did I do? All I know is that I went through, as I shared with you, with grief. And then fast forward, after leaving the sisters, 2 years later, I met Danny. He was an alcoholic. We fell in love. And he ultimately died from the disease. And now at this point, I did not want to live life. At this point, I couldn't smile anymore because up until then, Kathy, I was like, yeah, everything's fine. I'll get through it. God loves me, like this and that. When I found Danny dead a month before our wedding day, I'm like, no, God, I didn't want to live. I didn't want, the smile on my face was wiped away. And that was back in March of 2013. So,
Okay.
and at that point, honestly, in the guts of my guts, I felt like my life, my purpose in life was to suffer. Is to suffer black cloud, you whatever you want to call it, pain, suffering. I mean, I'll take it. Give it to Gina, like Mikey with the cereal. I don't know if you ever remember that life.
Yeah, I do. I did. Mikey likes it.
Mikey likes it. Give it to Gina. She doesn't like it, but she'll suffer. She know that. I don't know how I did it.
She'll make you think she likes it. She'll make you think that it's okay.
Yeah, I'm the strong person. I'm suffering like Jesus. I'm doing this like I'm the but more so after Danny's death, like it was a period of time that was where I was in complicated grief. Like I was just I did not I really did not want to live. I wanted to die. I wouldn't kill myself, but I just was simply existing. That's how I said it. I also looked at it that when I pictured myself in a hospital bed and you're pressing the button and nobody's coming and you're like in the butt and there's no and you don't have no more strength to press that button. That's where my mind, soul, body became like that. That's the state I felt. And so I came back to Jersey because that's where I live today. I live in New Jersey and that's where I met Danny. But yet his tragedy happened in Indiana. So, but then when that all happened, like I returned back to Jersey, simply just, I'll just wait until I die, whatever. And then I went into the rooms of AA because, like I shared with you, Danny was an alcoholic.
Right.
He was in and out of recovery. When he was sober, he was a great man. And he had a personal tragedy in his life because when he was sober and when everything was great in our life, he had a car accident with his mom in Indiana. That's how we ended up in Indiana, where his mom died, burned up, and Danny burned up. So I also lost his mother too in this whole time. And so I had uplifted and be with Danny in Indiana, and then he ultimately died. He went back to drinking, and I found him dead. So that happened in his 6 months. So I'm just sharing you where my mind and heart were at. And even to the listeners, I mean, I was in this state of darkness. It was like, forget it, forget.
And I couldn't even begin to make any progress before something else happened.
Exactly. I was like, yep, yeah, it happened. Yeah. And the smile that you see today I didn't have a smile. There was no smile. And so I did my own searching again. But my searching was, why did Danny die of being an alcoholic? And why do people get sober? So I went into the rooms of AA, which is a 12-step program. I just went in crying, listening, or whatever, just crying mostly, because I do have to say, tears were my best friend, still is. During tears, I felt tears are healing. So I always cry. It's like, give me healing, let me cry. Back then, could it be a stranger on the street and I would share my story and I would be crying? You want to hear my story? You want to sit on my comfy couch? Like I had a pity couch within. So, but I went into these rooms, listened, and this gentleman there invited me to come into another meeting. And I'm like, I'm not an alcoholic. Danny is, and he's dead, and you're alive, and I'm pissed off. And so I went into these rooms, listening, and then 10 months later, just going to these meetings every day, not as an alcoholic, that I came to realize that, oh my God, I'm an alcoholic. So I joined the program, as they would say, without realizing it. And alcoholism was not in my family. I know we like to drink. And then I had to look in hindsight how alcohol was was my best friend, I realized.
Well, sure. Yeah.
Something I ran to, something I thought I'd become. Like, I'll be this person if I drink. I become more social, believe it or not, or I'd be the center of the attention. So on April 2nd, 2015, when I said my name was Gina, I'm an alcoholic, everything changed in my life. Did not realize at the time, but once again, I had another grieving, the grieving of alcohol, the grieving of my old behaviors, being in the self-pity, the victimhood, look at me, grieving up little Mikey, I would say. I mean, these are all, I'm talking about grieving emotionals inside. I had to let go. I had to let go of that self-pity. I had to let go of that fear. And I had to learn, as I'm in the rooms of AA, I had to learn to grieve healthier in a healthy way.
Sure.
Because that does happen. But I wasn't, in my whole life, I was not grieving in a healthy way. So being in the rooms for over 10 years now, ever since then, one day at a time, I became to know who Gina is. I became to learn who that little girl is that I've been running away from my whole life as a child. And it was just one thing after another, whether it was grief. As a child, I had a lot of surgeries, you know what I mean? Like physically, I wasn't physically well. So I had to really adapt to this as I became sober. I had to realize like, wow, there is a little girl in me. Wow, there is a God that loves me for me. Wow, I can grieve and cry and be angry in a healthy way. I can be afraid in a healthy way. Today, fear, anger, resentment doesn't control me anymore. It doesn't paralyze me. Because life goes on. I know many people since have died. My father had died when I was in recovery back in 2016, and I was about a year sober. And so what did I do? I went to a meeting. I talked about it. I had these tools. I did it properly instead of like with my mom, with Danny wanting them back and this, I want this. No, I don't know where they are or etc. And so today I really do have a personal experience with my God, spiritual awareness, a relationship. My faith has grown stronger. I know who I am. I know who God is. I have the taste of heaven. I've tasted heaven. And that's where I am today. I'm a sober woman of faith today. Yeah, and I enjoy life. I show up to life. I show up and be present to those and to share my story, to share my strength, to share my weakness. Grief for me I never went to school for grief, but my life has experienced grief. So when people do grieve for for their loved ones, there's nothing I can say to them. I've learned that it's okay, especially when they lose someone in the beginning, like the first 2 years through. It's okay to feel it. It's okay. It's okay if you want to cry, if you want to be angry, if you want to punch the wall. I'm here. If you want to call me, I can listen. If you want to hit me, go ahead. It's okay. Because I never had that when I was grieving in my life, with my mom and Danny, as well as with the sisters.
Yeah. Well, it sounds to me like the 12-step program of AA was something that gave you some structure, some support, and some approval. So those things are hard to come by if you are grieving and you don't have a community around you. You don't have those friends that will listen to you as you talk or as you scream or sit with you silently as you cry. But you found all of those things in the rooms of AA, it sounds like to me. And that has brought you to where you are today. You not only recognize it, but you also appreciate it and value it. Is that correct?
Totally, Kathy.
Yeah.
That is totally correct. And I know, like, when my mom had died, of course, I wasn't in any kind of program, but yet I did go to see a counselor. Like, I was a person that, like, let me talk. I went to, and then especially after Danny died, I went to a special group where families lose someone to alcoholism or addiction, because that's a whole new, different realm. It's a stigma like that. So I had to learn not to be ashamed, not to say, oh, Danny died as an alcoholic. No, Danny died as an alcoholic. He died from the disease. And I had to learn to let go all that shame. But you're totally correct, because when I came into the rooms of AA, first I had to realize, oh my God, I'm an alcoholic. And I look back in hindsight, that was my problem my whole life. Maybe not the drinking part, but all the isms, the thinking, the manipulations, the fear, the control, like all that I was caught up in all that. But then when I listened and working the steps, and then I had to invite God back in my life, because as you know, I always say this in the rooms, I married God, I divorced God, but now he's back in my life, because when I came into the rooms, I hated God. And that's another thing. I hated God with a passion. And now if you say that, whether you're in the rooms or even in a Christian environment, they're like, no, you can't hate God. Yes,
From?
I can. Yeah, I married it. He knew, know who he is. And and that's because God is to me is real. And it's not only real to me, he's real to all of us or whoever your higher power is.
Right.
So it's okay to say, hey, you know what? So back then, when people would say to me, before they didn't know I was a nun, I'm in my beginning stages. They're like, oh, God loves you and God does this and da da da, And in my mind, I'm like, no crap, God loves me. I married him. I mean, he knows who I am. He's not like this about. And I said, he's to relearn a new life. And that was just, it wasn't, I don't want to say, no, it wasn't, it was easy, but yet it wasn't easy because I had to really trust in God, have faith in a higher power, whether it's someone that's not Gina, someone that's not Kathy. I'm sorry, Kathy, you're not my God. You know what I mean? It's not like, or anyone to really trust and say, hey, I walk with you. I let go. I forgive. I mean, I had to go through a lot of forgiveness in my heart. Let go, forgiveness.
Yeah.
I had to write a letter to Danny because I was so angry with him when he died. And how could he? And Danny, when he was sober, Kathy, he was the greatest man. We got engaged and everything. And he said to me, he said, we'd be talking and now meanwhile, I didn't know I had the disease. So like he's the sick one, I'm thinking. And he said, he goes, Gina, I love you so much. He goes, there's two things you don't have to worry about. You don't have to worry about that I won't drink again. I will always be faithful to you. Well, Kathy, he ended up drinking, dying drunk, and he was unfaithful. So, and I share that because I was hiding that. I was shameful of that. Didn't mean he didn't love me. Which, I mean, these are like the steps of the program you said, as well as my higher power is God and other things. Like I went back to reading the scriptures, just doing little things, walking on the beach. Beach is where heaven and earth meets. That's where I feel all those who are passed away. I go to heaven, I go to the beach. Like all these things are like resources or sources that help me to be who I am today, to have this smile, to have this, and to live life on life's terms.
Yeah. And I think sometimes too, when we go through as much as you went through and suffered grief in many different forms, loss of someone you loved, loss of a lifestyle or a life you thought you were going to have, loss of a career even, and then loss of another one you loved. You'd had grief in many, many different forms. That sometimes we as grievers, and I'm going to say thank you to Megan Devine for the phrase, it's okay to not be okay. But as grievers, I don't think we realize and accept readily that it's also okay to be okay. That when we're grieving, we can move forward. We can keep going, whether you have the help of a 12-step program. And I know AA is one of them, but there are others as well. There are therapists, there are clinicians. There are many, many ways. There are support groups, bereavement groups, and everything. Excellent programs out there that it's okay to work on yourself, to help yourself heal some so that you can be okay. It's okay to be okay. So I think it's marvelous that you've done what you've done.
And another tool, just to share briefly, is journaling.
Oh,
I journal. And sometimes I'm like, no, I can't write that. People are going to think I'm crazy.
Yeah.
No. I'm going to write this because this is how I feel. This is who I am. And if they read it, I don't really care because once it's on paper, feelings are okay. They're not facts. Feelings are not facts. You feel this way. They come and go. They ebb, flow, like this, and you learn that. But that's not who I am. Like, okay, that's not who I am. That's how I feel today. We go on.
Well, journaling does definitely help you get that feeling out of your system onto paper. And it's just like if you have a solid friend or someone at a meeting that you can verbalize something that makes you angry or something that you feel guilty about or ashamed about. And you can do that knowing that no one's going to judge you. You're in a safe space. But if you can get it out of you, it saves so much of that pent up emotion that really causes us a lot of the symptoms of grief. It really does.
Yeah, so true. Yeah. And the last thing I'll share is that now today, believe it or not, I'm an end of life doula. I'm present to the people who are dying, and I'm with their families, grieving. I help them at, I don't help them. I'm there. I do help them however they want their help. I'm there.
Yeah. And you're that non-judgmental person that will just sit with them in silence if you need to. Listen to them if that's what they need. Whatever they need, you're there to help them. Yeah.
That's exactly what I do, and it became a passion of my heart, which I never thought there's many things I never thought I would be today. An alcoholic in recovery, an end of life doula, like just sharing my experience, strength, and hope, to your listeners, to others. But it's fabulous.
Well, you've really come full circle, and from crises of faith, several of them, it sounds like, to where you are today, and now you're helping others that are facing end of life, and you support their families as well as they sit with them and try to grapple with the concept that they're going to lose someone they love.
Yeah. Sure.
So thank you. Sadly, the time has come where we need to wind things up. This is the point where I turn the microphone over to my guests so that you can speak directly to our listeners without me interrupting you with questions or comments. So the floor is yours, Gina.
It's Kathy, and to all your listeners, I want to thank you for listening to us. And you can find it all. I am a first-time author. I wrote my book, Shake the Dust Off Your Feet and Walk. It's available on Amazon. And you can catch more on my website, ginaecon.com. And the last thing I'd like to share with you all is that do not lose hope. Do not be discouraged. Know that you're not alone. And if nobody told you that they loved you today, I do. Peace.
Oh, I like that. Thank you again so much, Gina, for coming on here and just sitting and chatting with me. It's been such a pleasure. And your story is inspiring, it's engaging, and it's nothing short of your own personal miracle in a lot of ways. So, listeners, we have to say goodbye, and someone has informed me that every time I have to wrap up, I suffer a little grief for letting y'all go, but I know you'll come back again next time. Continue to take care of yourselves, please. That's a priority when you're grieving. And I'll catch you next time as we all continue to live and grieve.
Thank you so much for listening with us today. Do you have a topic that you'd like us to cover, or do you have a question from one of our episodes? Please email us at info@asiliveandgrieve.com and let us know. We hope you will find a moment to leave a review, send an email, and share with others. Join us next time as we continue to live and grieve together.